Fran Fraschilla.
All right, thanks a lot, John. Here at Hilton Coliseum in Ames, Iowa. A raucous beginning, a boisterous crowd. The second sellout of the season here in Ames as Iowa State, the home team, leads by 5. Here in the first half, 15-20 to go. The Cyclones have hit a couple of quick threes as Tyshawn Taylor is fouled going to the bucket. Let's take a look at the starting lineups brought to you today by Michelin. For Kansas, Relaford, Taylor, and Johnson, the backcourt. Robinson, the All-American candidate, and Jeff Withey up front for the Jayhawks, who've come in winning 10 games in a row. Meanwhile, for the Cyclones, BABB, Christopherson, and Allen, the 3 guards. Melvin Ejim, who already has a couple of threes, and Royce White, really the barometer for this Cyclone team. Tyshawn Taylor at the free throw line, and Fran, he has been playing as well as any guard in the country over the last 5 games, especially shooting the 3-point shot.
The way to summarize his career, Mark, as Bill Self said, he does things you can't coach, and sometimes he does things that you wonder if he's been coached. But you have to give him this. Over the last part of the season, he's been as good as any guard in the country. And the numbers bear that out.
At a career high 28 points against the Cyclones in the first meeting a couple of weeks ago. That's a kick ball. It'll be out of bounds. Iowa State basketball.
Now the key here for Iowa State is, remember, Jeff Withey at 7 feet is guarding the versatile Royce White. So White is going to try to keep Withey on the perimeter as much as he can.
White is comfortable out there handling it, though, right?
Very much so. Now take a look.
6'8", 260 pounds, leads the team in assists. This time they turn it over.
That time Chris Allen wasn't ready for the post-up, the feed from Booker.
There's Johnson. Withey posting up, White inside. Taylor with a nice show and go. Lost the handle. Battle for the loose ball. Withey comes up with it. And Johnson with 15 on the shot clock. Elijah Johnson driving. Robinson traveled with it. That possession seemed to almost implode from the very beginning as Tehan checks into the ball game now for the Jayhawks. Kansas 7-0, looking for their 8th consecutive Big 12 title, 17-3 overall. And Iowa State coming in at 4-3. They lost to Texas a couple of nights ago. And this game to a man. The players of Iowa State have told me this is the game. A win here today takes us from a team from being maybe a bubble team to a team that has a very good chance, Fran, of getting into the tournament. Do you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree. Right now, they're the 5th best team in this conference if you talk about where they are at this point in the season.
Chris BABB, the transfer from Penn State, knocks it down.
That's a huge basket, Mark, because Chris BABB went 0 for 8 against Kansas and actually has been on a 3 for 21 schneid from the perimeter. He needs to get a couple of get going early.
It's interesting, Fran, when we got to the arena 2 hours before tip, he already had a 2-hour lather going, getting shots up. Johnson cut off on the baseline. Tehan couldn't find the handle, and the Cyclones have a 3-on-2. Christopherson inside, White fouled by Relaford. And the Cyclones attacking under their second-year head coach, Fred HOIBERG. And you talk about a coach being in his dream job right now. HOIBERG grew up just 5 blocks from Hilton Coliseum. He played high school basketball here in Ames, Iowa, at Ames High. His mom and dad still live in the area. His father is a professor at Iowa State.
All those things are nice, but he was also a pretty good player, too.
Yeah, that kind of helps.
Yeah.
And his number hanging in the rafters here.
It wouldn't matter if he grew up 5 blocks from here. If he didn't have the great career he did.
I was working on the Disney angle first, if you don't mind. Royce White, not a great free throw shooter. And that could be an issue at some point in the ballgame, shooting just 51% from the foul line. But that is maybe the only blemish when it comes to his overall game, Fran, when you look at the numbers.
Well, that's exactly right. You see those numbers, Mark. There's not a player in any of the Power 6 conferences that leads his team in 5 categories. Now, he missed his last 7 free throws at Texas the other night. So he's on a little schneid here, if you will.
And missed these 2 from the foul line. McGee is checked in. Christopherson couldn't splash it, and here comes Tyshawn Taylor. Taylor misses everything. And he hears it from the sellout crowd here at Hilton Coliseum, pardon me. Right Working against Withy. White, an able passer, but that time a little bit awry.
That ball might have been deflected. I think that's what the crowd was riffing about. White's issue now is and I talked to Fred HOIBERG about this yesterday, Mark. Because he's lost confidence in his free throw shooting, he's not necessarily going to attack the rim as much as he can and be more of a playmaker. And I'm not sure that helps Iowa State.
Relaford, and he makes the three. Travis Relaford, a 33% three-point shooter.
Iowa State does not have a pure point guard. It's basically three scoring guards, White and the undersized EJIM.
White dishes it out to the corner. And the long ball good by Anthony Booker. Booker, another one of several transfers. He comes to the Cyclones from Southern Illinois.
Now, the amazing thing about Anthony Booker, he's now 9 for 14 from behind the arc in conference play. But there's that ability of White I mentioned to get the ball to people.
Another assist for him. Iowa State in his own defense. Babb comes up with a pinch. Chris Babb on the move. Got it. And they're ready to blow the top on Hilton Coliseum when we come back. Welcome back, everyone, to Saturday Showcase here on ESPN College Basketball, presented by 5 Hour Energy. From uptown, downtown, midtown Ames, the talk all week has been centered around this game against Kansas.
And Bill Self said that Kansas would have to play its best road game of the season here.
Elijah Johnson hits nothing but net.
Good set play, little dribble handoff. It's important to get Elijah Johnson going. Really struggled from the perimeter. Mark, this is the first of 5 road games for Kansas that include Missouri, Baylor, K-State, and then A&M. So they're in the heart of their schedule as far as toughness goes.
Bill Self telling me a little bit earlier before the game that he feels that their schedule really begins today. And when you look at the numbers and analyze them, winning on the road in the Big 12, not an easy task. Booker with 4 on the shot clock. Someone better launch soon. They turn it over instead. And Robinson on the move, and he's fouled from behind by number 25, TYRUS McGee. And that sends the Player of the Year candidate, Thomas Robinson, to the foul line when we come back to Ames, Iowa.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is presented by 5 Hour Energy, when you gotta get stuff done. And in part by Citi. What's your story? Citi can help you write it. Learn more at stories.citi.com.
Iowa State leading by 5, 11:25 to go in the first half. Mark Jones chopping it up courtside along with Fran Fraschilla. Royce White has a lot of ordnance, a lot of different weapons. What about the matchup today between the bigs, Fran?
It's a strange one. Jeff Withy at 7 feet has got to guard the versatile Royce White. And in the first game, Mark, it was interesting. White had a double-double at the half against Kansas. And in fact, the Cyclones led in the first half. They were up by as many as 13. But take a look what happened in the second half. White attacks the lane on Withy. Now, Withy is one of the best shot blockers in the country. So he rejects White at the rim. White's going to try it again. Withy's going to reject him at the rim. And then the third time, White tries to take advantage of Withy. White's going to travel, get very frustrated. But in this game today, White still with that ability to make people better on the perimeter. Watch, Withy comes out. That allows CHRISTOPHERSON to get to the rim. They move the shot blocker around, and White's able to get the tip in inside.
And so far, White with a couple of points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. So rounding out that stat sheet as Thomas Robinson tries to do the same, knocking down the first free throw. Thomas Robinson out of Washington, D.C., a 6'10 junior. If you don't already know his really compelling and really tragic story last year, within the span of about 30 days, losing his grandparents, grandfather, grandmother, and his mother. And it was incredible to see the way this Kansas Jayhawk community and team rallied around him and take care of him and his family.
Quick hands by Tyshawn Taylor. Iowa State is 0 for 2 out of timeouts, and I'll tell you why that's important in a second.
Kicked ball out of bounds. It'll be Kansas basketball.
And you look at Fred Hoiberg's NBA background and all the timeouts in the league, Mark. Iowa State, the best team in the country at scoring after timeout situations. Kansas today has done a good job at defending those plays that you draw up in the huddle.
Hoiberg had a 10-year NBA career before a heart ailment and surgery subsequently forced him to retire. Inside, and good defense knocked away by Anthony Booker.
Remember, Iowa State did a very good job of holding Thomas Robinson down in that first meeting. It was Tyshawn Taylor that exploded for 28.
That was the 6th turnover of the game for the Jayhawks. BABB off the screen, nice feed inside, EJIM, and one. Well, Melvin EJIM is getting busy here at the offensive end.
He's a tough matchup, Mark, because he plays the power forward spot, but he moves like a small forward. This time he takes it right through Wesley. And again, we pointed out earlier, EJIM and Thomas Robinson, former high school teammates at Brewster Academy.
And their team went 34-4 and were the mythical national champions that year. And EJIM already with 10 points. What does that say about the way they're playing offensively, the fact that their main guys got so many from?
Well, I think they're a unique team because of the kind of personnel they have with the mobile light. EJIM undersized but quick, can shoot, can score inside.
Elijah Johnson with the floater. Knocked out of bounds, and it'll be Kansas basketball.
It's interesting that Elijah Johnson went to the rim because he's only shot 17 free throws this year.
Bill Self saying that he feels that their season really begins today, the first of several very difficult conference road games. And Kansas turns it over. McGee missing. Another scramble. There's going to be a holding foul against the Cyclones.
That was a scramble, and I think McGee picked up the foul. And quietly, that's an important foul because that's his second. And we haven't talked about TYRUS McGee, but he's one of, you talk about Michael Dixon Jr. and Pierre Jackson, who's now in the starting lineup. TYRUS McGee is one of the best 6 men in the Big 12. And you see how Fred Hoiberg's going to give him the quick hook because of the 2 fouls.
And McGee, the reigning Big 12 Rookie of the Week. Had a breakout game last week against Texas Tech. He had 20 points.
He's a junior college transfer out of Cowley County, but he grew up in a little Stringtown, Oklahoma.
Have you recruited that town?
No, but they have 3 guys in the Big 12 from he had a graduating class of 22. And C.J. Washington from Oklahoma is a graduate. James Watson also. Stringtown, pretty good basketball.
Elford goes inside, ball knocked away, and a whistle, and it looks like we get a foul underneath as Anthony Booker holds his head. That's going to be the first foul against Booker.
Now everybody, let's take a look at this because Booker's got his work cut out for him. Remember, Robinson he's already got 1, and I think that's a pretty good call, really. Robinson didn't extend. Hey, listen, when you talk about Kansas's big guys now, they get 3 baskets a game simply because they know how to seal. We've seen that going back to Wayne Simeon. And the guys that Danny Manning and Bill Self have had an effect on.
Boy, nice inbound play. The bucket good by Kevin Young, the 6'8 junior. And Kansas has quietly gotten back into this game down by just 4. Christopherson off the curl. He's going to be fouled. It's going to go against Tyshawn Taylor. That's his second. And how big is that foul? All right, let's look at the replay first.
Well, first, here's that little flex cut on the baseline off the inbounds. And you see Young gets open, gets the easy basket. But that's a huge foul on Tyshawn Taylor because he has been the catalyst for Bill Self. And they're going to let Bill Self know that he's got 2, but they haven't gotten him out.
White with a nice feed to BABB. And the Cyclones turn it over. This will be a over and back violation.
Chris BABB should have shot that basketball. He has had a crisis of confidence here lately.
You saw Bill Self point to his head. He was looking at his point guard, Tyshawn Taylor, Is that the old be careful, don't get number 3?
That's because he's a senior. You know, now the key for Tyshawn Taylor is to be cerebral about his defense. And in fact, in terms of attacking the rim, he's got to be cautious as well.
He has been as perplexing a star that Bill Self has ever had at Kansas. Young from downtown. Misfires and rebounded by Christopherson. 4-point lead for the Cyclones. 9 minutes to go here in the first half. Here's Royce White. A quick trigger by Allen, and why not?
And when Royce White runs that dribble handoff play, it's like the left side of the Minnesota Vikings offensive line.
That's going to be a whistle and a foul. They're going to call it on Royce White. An and one for Robinson.
I'd like to see this, Mark, because if a defender, let's take a look at this now. Oh, I don't like that call. And let me tell you the rule. Once you establish legal guarding position, you are allowed to move both sideways and backwards. And I think that Thomas Robinson got away with a huge one right there. That was good defense. And that's a good official, too, but I think Steve Olson missed that one.
Nice two-man game. Robinson left it short. Rebounded by Royce White.
See, if I were Fred Hoiberg right now, I'd go right at Thomas Robinson inside because I'm not even sure the official doesn't know that he missed it.
Allen from way downtown and rebounded by Kevin Young.
Anytime officials make a controversial call against your team, put it back on them by going inside the next possession.
Robinson traveled with it that time. That's the 8th turnover for the Jayhawks. Sunday night, ESPNU, you are home for ACC basketball. This week, Georgia Tech visits Harrison Barnes, who's from Ames, Iowa, and number 8, North Carolina State. ACC Sunday night basketball presented by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups on ESPNU, ESPN3, as well as streaming live on WatchESPN.com. Coverage starting at 5:30. Robinson going to get a breather. Here's Royce White.
Robinson very fortunate he didn't pick up that second foul, Mark, because I thought Royce White had great position.
He's got position on the block. Nice feed to EJIM.
See, the problem is White won't shoot it.
That's going to be a traveling violation. Yeah, he had his man in pretty good position, but deferred that time. And right now, it's Cyclones with the lead by 7 when we come back.
You need power.
Interesting to see Missouri bounce back from that loss against Oklahoma State. But when you get into conference play in the Big 12, really all bets are off.
Well, you see the kind of road environment you go to in this league, and this is a great example today. Hilton Coliseum has long been a thorn in the side of the Jayhawks. In fact, guys like Wilt Chamberlain, who didn't play in Hilton but played in Ames, and Danny Manning. Danny Manning went 0 for 4 in Hilton Coliseum.
Kansas has defeated Iowa State 13 consecutive times, including 7 in a row here. The Cyclones trying to break that insidious streak here tonight. Johnson on the drive, 10 on the shot clock. Tehan knocks down the long jumper. Great Tehan.
Great set play. They run that a lot. Dribble handoff, dribble handoff, dribble handoff, and they get Tehan on the flare over the top. And that's out of a timeout.
4-point lead, Royce White. That time took it right at the big man and one. Well, Franny didn't pass it out that time.
That's a good play by Royce White. He's got to overcome the fact that doesn't be concerned about his free throw shooting and take the ball at the big guy. This is power on size right there. Power on length, if you will. This is what makes this such an intriguing matchup, Mark.
White going to try and complete the three-point play, having a tough day at the foul line, and that had an inordinate amount of arc on it. It got so bad that in their last game, Fran, he looked like Meadowlark Lemon at the free throw line. He shot faked, and he drew everyone into the lane.
He had a ball slip out of his hands.
That's going to be a bench warning against Kansas. Let me ask you, put your coach hat back on as we look at the coaching staff for Kansas.
Yeah.
What do you do with Royce White with his struggles at the foul line? How do you treat him?
Well, here's the crazy thing. He's playing for one of the best free throw shooters ever to play in the Big 12. And Fred said it's just a confidence thing right now. Doesn't think there's much wrong with his stroke.
EJIM had it knocked away, Kansas ball.
Let's go back to that bench warning in a second. There's a dead ball, and I want to explain that.
Relaford on the wing.
See how they're not going to play Young. And that's exactly what they want him to do right there.
Well, he made one earlier.
Yep.
Which might have been a bad thing. Who knows? White kicks it out of bounds. It'll come back the other way to Kansas. Talk about that bench warning that Kansas got.
What's happened this week, the officials have gotten pretty much a directive from the NCAA that coaches and players, coaches have been acting up on the bench. Players, they're concerned about sportsmanship. And while Bill Self doesn't particularly have a problem with bench decorum, it's just the officials' way of alerting both coaches.
Jumper a little bit long by Tehan, although there was that play by Marquette Brown in that Oklahoma State game. He was ejected after his second technical. Sometimes you'd like to see a little bit of discretion, and I respect the officials, but when you start giving out technical fouls for looking at a guy, then things get a little foggy. And I love Joe DeRosa, who made that call.
Well, I think what happens is the officials have let the game, generally now, they've let sportsmanship get away from the game midway through the season, and it's just the NCAA's way of getting everybody back on the same page. Now, right now, if you're Iowa State and Royce White has the ball, you've got to have your head on a swivel, because he's throwing passes right now that his teammates are not prepared to catch.
Tehan to Withy.
You see how they're playing off Withy.
Johnson comes off the screen.
Bill Self comes back and puts Withy in pick and roll.
Robinson with the jump hook, no good. Rebounded by EJIM.
That's a great chess match, because if the defense plays off Withy and then he gets involved in pick and roll, there's nobody to help when the guard comes off.
That's going to be a foul against Tehan. That's his second.
Take a look at this, Mark. Now watch how far off they play. See, Royce White is going to give him that shot. And then they get Withy in the screen and roll, trying to create some indecision. They still get the ball inside. Robinson misses.
Meanwhile, Christopherson at the foul line, a 92% free throw shooter. He doesn't miss many.
You know, they talk about transfer you, and you think of Chris Babb and Chris Allen, Royce White. But this guy is the original transfer. Mr. Basketball in Wisconsin. He started his career at Marquette, where as a freshman he backed up Wesley Matthews, Dominique James, and Jarrell McNeil. And he was almost a teammate of Tyshawn Taylor, who committed and signed with Marquette out of college until Tom Crean left to go to Indiana.
And Christopherson has done a nice job since getting to Ames here. Relaford from downtown. He's fouled on the three-point shot. And when you look at the geography of where these guys have come from all corners of the country, especially from the Midwest all the way over to the East Coast, Marquette, Minnesota, Michigan State, Penn State, and Southern Illinois, and it's something that
what did you think of the first time you knew all these guys were transferred? What were you thinking as a coach?
It's a kind of a motley, kind of mixed group now, and you're throwing together a quick fix.
But here's the point: very few people could have pulled that off like Fred Hoiberg, because he's got so much respect in his community, and these kids have really bought into that. You know, if John Calipari takes 5 transfers, the national media is killing him. But because this is the mayor of Ames, with all due respect to Ann Campbell, the current mayor, this guy was a great player. You know, he's a great institution in his community. He's pulled it off, and you know what? It's working.
And he says he doesn't plan on doing it that way every year. It's just to jumpstart the program.
And he has, because he's got a very good recruiting class coming out, and 2 more transfers sitting out.
Saw a shot of Corey Lucius on the bench a moment ago, sporting the Frohawk. 29-23, 5 minutes to go here in the first half. Nice feed by Christopherson. White missed it at the rim. Chance to cut it down to 4. Taylor, nice feed inside, Withy with position and the bucket.
That's Kansas basketball, Mark, and that's why I say they get 3 baskets a game that way. You don't have to have a post move to play at Kansas if you know how to seal.
4-point ball game and a chance to cut it to 2 on the turnover. CHRISTOPHERSON, palm skyward, looking at the official, begging for a call. My friend with Taylor handling, he's done a nice job playing with those 2 fouls. He gets it inside again to Withey. Withey going to work, and he's fouled on the attempt. Kansas having their way in the paint on the last few possessions for him.
Well, this is Kansas basketball, and this is what we've talked about. It goes back. This is Bill Self's 2 game. Now watch as the ball gets swung. Withey's going to go to the post and set up. Go ahead and run it, guys. Withey's going to seal. Now watch this. He's got him up the lane. The ball is going to go to the corner of the board. Perfect pass. Withey's just got to catch it and lay it in. Now, with all due respect to the Morris twins and Julian Wright and Darnell Jackson and Cole Aldridge, that offense is tailor-made for a big guy. The 2 game, the high-low.
Makes it attractive to get bigs to come here to school then, right?
Yeah, if you make 3 of those a game, you hit a couple of jumpers, couple of putbacks, you got 17, you're Player of the Year candidate.
I guess that's the way it works. Allen had it slip loose. Tyshawn Taylor on the move. Almost lost the handle, got the layup, and he has done a great job. For a guy that has been much maligned in the past, he has done a wonderful job in playing under control with those 2 fouls.
At Cheez-It, we expect a lot from our cheese.
So you don't want this?
Nope, I'm good.
Well, that's very mature of you, Cheese.
Why, thank you.
This is a real breakthrough. You know, in the past, you may have been, well, you've come a long way.
Totally.
Joe, they need you in the
What?
You have
I have a... Yeah.
Oh, can I have that slingshot back?
We take the time for our cheese to mature before we bake it into every delicious cracker. Because at Cheez-It, real cheese matters.
Did this incident on the bench a moment ago.
That's just coaching right there. Fred Hoiberg's letting Chris Allen know he's got to do what they want him to do. He hadn't played that well today. Take a look. There's the steal by. We told you how quick a hands Tyshawn Taylor has. That leads to the run out. Now let's face it. We talked about it being transfer U. Tom Izzo's not going to say very much, but it was apparent that Chris Allen and Tom Izzo were not on the same page. So this is Chris Allen's last chance to resurrect his career.
There's a redshirt senior. EJIM missing. He's already played in a couple of Final Fours and right now taking a seat on Fred Hoiberg's bench. Taylor with the quick step layup. He quick shot him, and look at that. Kansas storming back to take a 2-point lead with under 3.5 to go.
Once Tyshawn Taylor realized there was no chance to pick up that 3rd foul, he scooted to the rim.
CHRISTOPHERSON works the screen. Got ripped, but got fouled in the process. Tyshawn Taylor with an education and acceleration here. And Kansas leading by a deuce when we return.
Well, the Syracuse Orange without Fab Melo in the middle are a different team. And, of course, Fab wouldn't be able to stop that bank shot from Gary Brown on outside. That one tied his 1-point game. And don't forget, coming up at halftime on the UPS Halftime Report, big games in the Big 12. Baylor against Texas and Missouri against Texas Tech. It's all coming up on the UPS Halftime Report. Back to Jonesy.
All right, John. Kansas in the middle of a 10-0 run to take their first lead of the game. And Bill Self, Fran, how's he managed the foul situation with his 2 stars, Robinson and Taylor?
Well, it's different this year, Mark, because if you think about it, Tyshawn Taylor is playing 32 minutes a game, Robinson 31. With the lack of depth that Kansas has, he's got to be a little bit more cautious about how he plays those guys, but he needs them on the floor more so than in the past. So Taylor has managed to handle the 2 fouls really nicely. Robinson with the 2. If Kansas stays close, we may not see Robinson back the rest of the half.
Elijah Johnson on the baseline, picks it to Taylor on cue. A little bit strong with the jumper. And rebound. You know, a couple of weeks ago, Tyshawn Taylor told his mom, he said, "Mom, no issues with me this year for the next 3 months and the rest of the season. I'm going to be more focused than you've ever seen me. He's shown good focus here in the afternoon game so far.
The last month he's played like an All-American. He really has. He's been as important as Thomas Robinson.
Royce White kicks it out. Jumper good by McGee.
That's what we talked about. This kid can really shoot it. We didn't see him much because of those 2 quick fouls early, but Fred Hoiberg also realizing he can't let the game get away from his Cyclones.
Iowa State, one of a few teams with 4 players that have made over 33s on the season, much in the image of their head coach, Fred Hoiberg, one of the top 3-point shooters in college basketball history. Aaron pass by Elijah Johnson ricocheted right off of Tyson Taylor's chest. And they're having a good laugh about it right now. Elijah Johnson, 6'4" junior out of Las Vegas, Nevada. This is the first front end of the bonus. Withy with the jump hook, missed everything. Kansas gets it back. Nice speed. Oh, great passing. And Withy finished it off.
Boy, what a hustle play by Kevin Young. First to save it, and then to find Withy. And that was a 4-point turnaround right there. Iowa State had a chance to get the ball back, trailing by 1.
Royce White pounding it down low, goes up with it, and they say he traveled. That's the 13th turnover for the Cyclones.
Watch the hustle here. This is an air ball, so Young tries to fire it off. CHRISTOPHERSON and EJIM gets it back, and then a little touch pass to Withy.
Royce White with just 4 points in the ball game and 6 rebounds. Had that monster game, 18 and 17 the first time out against Kansas. Nice feed inside. Young, tough turnaround. Relaford hustling after it out of bounds. It'll be Iowa State basketball. 1.5 to go here in the first half. And Iowa State with a 1-point lead. Tehan coming back into the game for Kansas.
Okay, now this is good coaching by Bill. This is why he makes the big money, okay? He's ridden Taylor really well with 2 fouls. He's either going to be up 1, down 1, up 3, down 3. But he's going to keep Robinson and Taylor on the bench the last minute and a half because he's got the game close, and he's going to manage their fouls.
There's BABB from downtown. Gets his own rebound back. Royce White. CHRISTOPHERSON. EJIM. Well, after making his first 2 3-pointers, he has gone frosty. And Kansas with the ball and a chance to take the lead with 1:05 to go now in the first half. And Tyson Taylor imploring his teammates from the sidelines.
Bill Self calling something out.
Elijah Johnson running the point.
Bill Self's got a bag of tricks, boy, offensively. I think people think they roll the ball out. He's an excellent coach. There's that flare screen we talked about.
EJIM was reading it all the way, and he gets fouled by Relaford. Boy, EJIM atoning for that air ball a few moments ago with great hustle on D. Hey, Big Monday features 2 college basketball games on ESPN at 7. Rivals collide with Pittsburgh and West Virginia, the backyard brawling at 9. Marcus Denman and number 2 Missouri take on Jacobin Brown in Texas. Big Monday presented by Bud Light on ESPN, ESPN3 as well. So streaming live on ESPN and watchespn.com. Bouncy year, a turbulent year for West Virginia coach Bob Huggins, but Kevin Jones, a great player.
Well, we saw them early in the year. They're a young basketball team, lots of freshmen, but Kevin Jones having an All-American type season. He is going to get strong consideration for Big East Player of the Year. This game reminds me an awful lot like the Missouri-Oklahoma State game during the week because Missouri controlled that game for about 30 minutes or so, and then of course, Oklahoma State went on that huge run late in the second half, and Missouri really couldn't answer.
And freshman LeBron Nash starting to fulfill some of that promise and potential. There's a 9-second difference between the shot clock and game clock. Elijah Johnson kicks it to Tehan from the corner. And CHRISTOPHERSON with a rebound. 15 seconds to go. They'll get 1.
Smart play by CHRISTOPHERSON. He looked up at the clock. He knows what his coach wants.
He hit that buzzer beater to win the game against the Cowboys a couple of runs ago. And he draws the foul from Relaford. So he gets bailed out. And we'll get a couple of free throws. That's the second on Relaford.
And you mentioned earlier, he's the wrong guy to foul. Relaford's got to know better. And he didn't have to start out by pressuring at 40 feet. He could have actually played behind the screen, which was beyond this guy's shooting range, Christopherson.
Tyshawn Taylor getting set to come into the game for Kansas, a situational sub. Jordan Raley comes in, meanwhile, for Iowa State. For Royce White. That'll sit down with 4 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds. Nothing but net for Christopherson. 4-point lead. Let's see if Taylor can get to the bucket or get a shot off here. He will. He's a blur coming down the court and forced Allen into the foul. It has been a rough day for Chris Allen, facing the wrath of his head coach a few minutes ago and getting a trip to the bench and now committing a foul.
Here's the amazing thing about that. Watching Kansas this week and doing some synergy sports tech work, this guy drives to the left 75% of the time.
They got that scouting report too, right?
Yeah, and you got to know that. That's just simple scouting report defense.
Taylor at the free throw line had a career-high 28 against the Cyclones a couple of weeks ago. He's the X factor in this team a lot of times. You figure that Robinson is going to get double teamed, so he becomes maybe their next best player for him?
Yep, he does. Well, there's no question. No, in fact, when he's on his game, he's playing as well as Robinson lately. And Jordan Jr. is going to come in the game for Taylor if he makes this one.
He's going to stay in. That's going to be the end of the first half. Christopherson trying his luck as Fred Hoiberg's team goes into the locker room leading by 3, trying to snap that 13-game losing streak against Kansas. Kansas trying to keep that 10-game winning streak alive. 3-point game of the break. Right now we send it to John Saunders for the UPS halftime report. John?
Mark, John Saunders here with Andy Katz and Doug Gottlieb in the UPS halftime report, and some very important matchups elsewhere in the Big 12. Texas Tech taking on Missouri. And Phil Pressey gets a steal, feeds it to Ricardo Ratliff on the no-look pass.
Missouri coming off that loss at Oklahoma State, still trying to stay in step with the front-runner Kansas.
Missouri with an early lead, and then Petaway with a three-pointer.
Wouldn't it be remarkable if the last time these schools meet, border war schools, that they could meet for the Big 12 title?
Missouri and Kansas?
Yeah.
It could happen.
Maybe 3 times.
Yes. 3 there, and you see a 14-point lead for Missouri. Texas facing Baylor. And Perry Jones III, watch him get loose inside and finish with a huge dunk.
After a no-show last weekend, a double-double at the half for PJ3.
Baylor by 2. Jones III to Quincy Miller, one-handed dunk. Baylor by 4. And then Quincy AC spins in the lane, lays it in.
Is that more of a neon, or is it a yellow?
Yeah, Michigan's a little jealous of how neon that yellow is.
Jacobin Brown with a quick move past Jones III.
What a tremendous year Jacobin Brown's had. He's carrying this team. He's come back from a badly sprained ankle, really matured under Rick Barnes.
Just a 5-point game, and then Perry Jackson throws it up to Jones III on the lob. 9-point game, just a 1-point game at that point. You know, it's interesting in the Big 12. In previous years, you say it's Kansas and then maybe throw in an Oklahoma, or it's Kansas, maybe throw in a Kansas State. It's Kansas and somebody else. But this year, it seems deeper, not maybe from top to bottom, but at the top. There's a lot more cream at the top.
I think if you look at other conferences, you could make the argument that the Big 12 has a higher percentage of potential Final Four teams. 3 teams could get to New Orleans: Missouri, Kansas, and Baylor. They all have the talent. Doesn't mean they will, but they certainly all have the talent and should get high seeds. I think the bubble is small. Maybe only Iowa State and Kansas State.
I would be surprised if they're Final Four teams. Maybe more remarkable is Kansas, essentially with all backups from last year's team. Last year's team that won the league for a 7th consecutive year could essentially win the league if they win today and don't lose a home game. They could even drop the games to Baylor, Missouri, and Kansas State on the road because they all have a loss to one of the non-Big Threes or a home loss like Baylor last week.
They may fact, never lose in the conference the way things are going right now. Syracuse, the Orangemen, as you
Everyone to the Saturday Showcase presented by 5 Hour Energy, Hilton Coliseum, where the Cyclones lead it by 3 as we get ready for the start of the second half. Mark Jones chopping it up courtside along with the coach, Fran Fraschilla. Fran, if you're Iowa State, your best player hasn't done a lot offensively, but you still got the lead.
You're thrilled because you are up 3, and they played poorly in the first half. They really did. And if you're Bill Self, on the other hand, he told us how hard road wins are in this league. This is where the rubber meets the road for Kansas over the next 5 road games, and I think he's relatively happy to be within striking distance.
Iowa State shooting 48% from the field in the first half. Kansas 41%. Here's Allen, who struggled in the first half for the Cyclones, and White now. Facing up on the big fella. Nice move inside, and he's in attack mode, friend.
Well, that's how he has to play. Remember, he's missed his last 9 free throws, so that's playing with his head. But Royce White's strength is his strength.
6'8" point forward for the Cyclones. Taylor inside to Relaford. Tough turnaround, and he knocks it down nonetheless. Travis Relaford, whose brother Trevor had a big game for Alabama against Kentucky last week, had 17 points. 3-point game. Iowa State with the lead. White again going to work on the block. I'll force that one up a little bit over Withy. Christopherson with the look.
Well, Christopherson forced that one. He had a little space, but with that run out.
And Robinson gets an easy one with a rim run. Good look by the point guard Tyshawn Taylor.
Well, you think of Withy and Robinson and where they were a year ago, Mark. One guy played 15 minutes as a role player. The other guy was buried deep on the bench. Big reason why Kansas hasn't had much of a drop-off.
There's White. BABB from deep. Rebounded by Robinson. Yeah, Robinson was the 6th man on this Kansas team last year. What does it say about player development at Kansas?
Well, number one, it says they recruit well, but it also speaks to the job Danny Manning and Bill Self have done. There's Taylor now.
Tyshawn Taylor in a groove.
Yep.
Kansas comes out of the gate here in the second half, balling out.
And remember this, Taylor and Robinson can play a little looser because they were able to manage those 2 fouls in the first half. Taylor can be in attack mode.
There's EJIM, who started the game off ablaze for Iowa State. Right down low. EJIM on the show and go. Rebounded by Kansas. And this building has fallen deafeningly silent from it.
And partly because Iowa State can get nothing going offensively.
Taylor had a notion over to Robinson. Inside Withy. Nice spin move and left-handed hook. And Kansas with a 3-point lead. Withy has 10. And Fred HOIBERG has seen enough. The Cyclones trying to run fast on a punctured tire right now. Down by 3 when we come back.
Tomorrow, Bulls Heat on 8.
Kansas on an 8-0 run, leading by 3. Friend, in our one-on-one, we talked about the big man matchup. How do you see it playing out so far?
Well, you could see early in the second half, Royce White has tried to attack Jeff Withy inside with some success. Take a look. They went right at Withy early, okay? This is a weird matchup for Withy because he's not used to guarding a mobile big man away from the basket. So credit White for that. Now he comes back at Withy. Withy holds his ground and challenges. And on the other end, Withy takes advantage, Mark, of that 7-foot frame and his improved ability around the rim. Kansas, a second big run. They had the 10-0 run in the first half, and now they're on the 8-0 run.
White takes it right at Robinson, got blocked. Right back up at it. And missed it a second time.
How about that? Robinson switched on to him that possession.
Johnson for 3. Got it. And it's an 11-0 run for the Jayhawks.
That might be one of the most important baskets in the game because Bill Self has been trying to get Elijah Johnson going from the perimeter. He's 2 for 3 today.
Christopherson off the screen. and blocked, but foul this time by Withy. Or is it against Robinson? Take your pick on that one. That one against Withy.
Well, you can tell what the talk was at halftime. Let's get the ball into Royce White. Don't worry about the free throw situation. Let's get him to the line, because what it does, Mark, it puts Kansas in a precarious position if he can get those two bigs in foul trouble.
And he makes his first free throw, Fran, in 10 attempts.
Exactly. Yep. But I think you got to play through Royce White, and Royce White's got to stay aggressive, because if he can get fouls picked up on Withy and Robinson, it helps them. 2 in a row. Give a ovation here. These people know their basketball.
They're literally on their feet.
Yep. This is a very knowledgeable basketball crowd.
Robinson with the left-handed jump hook.
See, I like both teams are starting to play to their strengths right now. And of course, what will happen is you can make some jump shots if you're the Cyclones. It'll really help them.
EJIM on the baseline. That's not a jumper. That's a tomahawk. That gets this crowd back into it. Just the second sellout of the year here at Hilton Coliseum. EJIM with 13 now. Johnson refuses the ball screen. Robinson walked with it. Well, in the immortal words of Lil Wayne, life's a beach, and right now Melvin EJIM just walking in the sand. Back with more after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Hilton Coliseum. Fred Hoiberg's number above the rafters and back at his local high school here in Ames. That's where it all started for the man they affectionately call the mayor here in Ames. State champion and was all-state in several sports, and Harrison Barnes of North Carolina and Doug McDermott of Creighton also played there as well.
You know, Greg McDermott was the coach here before Fred Hoiberg. I remember talking about him with his son, and he wasn't quite sure that he was going to be good enough to be a Big 12 player. I think he's been proven wrong, but I think the point is, when he got a chance to go to Creighton, Missouri Valley is such a perfect place for Doug McDermott, because he's that classic versatile four-man. What a career he's having.
And Chris Allen, meanwhile, Fran, drives and is called for the foul as Withy took the charge. But getting back to McDermott, he really had a successful summer playing with USA Basketball's under-19 team and really blossomed them.
Well, he has continued to blossom. Yeah. There's no question about it. And of course, he had a great freshman year at Creighton, but now they're ranked very highly and a very good team. And Harrison Barnes had a very good career. In fact, Doug McDermott was a role player on 2 of those teams here, and then the 3rd year was a great player.
Foul on the play against Royce White. And when you look at the resume of the head coach, Fred Hoiberg, played at Ames High, Iowa State guard for 4 years, 10-year career in the NBA, and then general manager, VP of basketball ops for the Timberwolves. Now 2nd season as head coach.
Well, remember, his career was cut short because of an aortic aneurysm. I think in 2005 it was, and he missed the entire season, 05-06, and that got him into NBA management.
Hoiberg's really woven into the community here. His mom and dad live close, and his father actually a professor at Iowa State. Get some good tutoring for your players, right?
I would say so.
Under 15 minutes to go here in the second half. 5-point game. Kansas has stormed back here out of the gate in the beginning parts of the second half. Babb with the pull-up. Tough shot, contested well by Reliford.
Chris Babb's at that point right now where he doesn't believe he's going to make shots. He shot that ball, and you can tell his body language. He's got no confidence.
Tyshawn Taylor, meanwhile, with the floater just short.
This is a big stretch for the Cyclones because they have gone ice cold, Mark.
An opportunity coming into this game for a huge win. Win today would be arguably the biggest win for Fred Hoiberg as their head coach. 10 seconds on the shot clock. Time to get busy. Nice pass by White, a little bit strong and tipped out of bounds.
This is great scouting report defense because Elijah Johnson is not going to get TYRUS McGee any breathing room. He knows how good a shooter McGee is.
Elijah Johnson has said, hey, when I get scored on, people notice because it doesn't happen a lot. 5 on the shot clock. CHRISTOPHERSON with the floater. Got it at the buzzer.
Well, he bailed Melvin EJIM out, who caught that ball and didn't have any clock awareness.
Taylor guarded by BABB. Robinson got great position, drew the foul, and will go to the free throw line. The foul's going to go against Melvin EJIM. That's the second foul against him.
Well, CHRISTOPHERSON knew, Mark. He looked up at that clock, realized he had to get something up, and you know what? He did a great job on that floater because he squared. Watch, he squares his shoulder to the rim. See, that's almost like what I'd call a one-footed jump shot. As long as you can square your shoulders to the rim and stay in alignment, you've got a chance to get a good look, and he's a good enough shooter.
Averaging 11 points a game as EJIM comes out of the game for Iowa State. Number 22, Anthony Booker, comes in.
Now, you and I have sons that play high school basketball in the backcourt, right? And if you're going to have that floater in your game, you've got to make it look as much like the jumper as possible. You're just shooting it off 1 foot, the only difference.
Been watching a lot of your DVDs, friend. Learning that. 4-point ball game, 13 and a half to go. Conspicuous by his silence offensively today for Iowa State is Chris Allen. Right now on the bench, a foul underneath, meanwhile, as CHRISTOPHERSON drives it in. Well, tomorrow ABC and ESPN bring you 2 NBA games. It all starts with key NBA countdown at 3 on ABC at 3:30. Derrick Rose and the Bulls taking on LeBron, Wade, and the Heat in a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals. And on ESPN at 6:30, the Spurs take on the Mavericks. And boy, you talk about NBA and some talented guards. What about the work of Minnesota Timberwolves and Ricky Rubio? Speaking of Fred Hoiberg's ex-team, Ricky Rubio and Kevin Love doing great work. And David Kahn, their general manager, in attendance today.
He is here today. Of course, Fred Hoiberg was an assistant to David Kahn in management there. Remember, they were a laughing stock for a couple of years. Now, nobody's laughing about the T-Wolves right now. Collection of really good young talent. No question about it. I talked to David Kahn before the game, and he said he wouldn't be surprised down the road someday if Fred Hoiberg is coaching in the NBA. Former player, cutting his teeth here, although this is a tough place to cut your teeth in the Big 12.
Taylor can't silence the crowd.
You know what, Mark? You get the feeling Kansas is up 12 because Iowa State has really not played that well.
CHRISTOPHERSON on the drive. Well contested. Good defense by Relaford.
See, CHRISTOPHERSON really is the only guy in that perimeter that's willing to put it down on the floor.
Jumper a little bit short by Teahan. The defensive work of Relaford today, Frank, has been pretty impressive.
You know what, Mark? In the last month, and this guy has waited his turn. He redshirted a year. He's become one of their key, you know, you hate to overuse the word glue guy, but a great role player.
He on the kick out. Booker from the corner, got it.
Now you see the big body, but don't let that fool you. He's got range, and he's accurate. There's that drive and a kick out. Keep in mind, Anthony Booker is now 10 for 15 from behind the arc. So you look at a guy that goes about 6'8", big body, looks like he should play around the rim, but he can stretch that defense for you.
Another one of several transfers to Fred Hoiberg here at Iowa State. He comes from Southern Illinois. Cyclones on an 11-4 run. They take a 1-point lead.
What I tell you at halftime, this reminded me of Wednesday night in Stillwater, right?
Oklahoma State upsetting Missouri.
Back and forth, and Just a little run by, that's a moving screen by Withey.
They got him. That's his third. With 12:09 to go, Fran, is that third foul at this juncture of the game much of a factor?
I think it is. I absolutely think it is. And you know where it started? It started early second half when Royce White started to pound it inside, even though we were talking about how he wasn't comfortable on the free throw line. I'd go right back at Robinson right now. Let's see what Robinson's going to guard. He's going to guard Booker.
Relaford dogging Christopherson. Booker with an open look. Rebounded by White, but there's a foul on the play. Iowa State with the lead. You can feel and almost hear the echoes of past and the Hilton magic that resonates from its rich history. Back with more from Ames after this. All right, guys, back to the action. Royce White with a show-and-go move, muscles it in and draws the foul on Justin Wesley. White going back to the foul line where he made his last 2 in a row.
Again, we talked about Fred Hoiberg. They're the best team in the country out of timeouts at creating points over a point of possession. And they're not going to worry about Royce White's free throws. The fact that he gets to the line and may be able to get this Kansas front line in foul trouble down the stretch could be just as important.
This is that one. He had missed his previous 9 in a row before making his last 2. Fran, does that factor perhaps into late game situations in a Hack-a-White deal, perhaps?
It could. But you know what usually happens in those situations? Guy usually makes them. You know, he doesn't have bad stroke.
Right. Made the second of 2. Cyclones up by a pair.
Go zone here, and they throw it away. Teahan wasn't paying attention.
And Elijah Johnson is going to come in for Teahan.
Well, Tyshawn Taylor never got them set in their offense. He just threw the ball to Teahan because Iowa State had changed their defense. Teahan wasn't looking, just a situation where there was bad communication.
Boy, the Sandman came quick. Inside White, and it's kicked away.
If you notice now, they're going to play through White. So they're not going to mess around. If the threes come on the perimeter off inside out, they'll do that. But it looks like Fred Hoiberg wants to just play through White in the post.
Is he more effective, Fran, playing in the post or on the edges at the perimeter?
You know, that's what makes him so good. He can do both. You know, and he can take you away from the basket. You see now, if you're going to throw it into him, a ball fake would be a good idea. Because everybody in the building, I mean, we're sitting over here. We know what's going into him. And see, there's no ball fake that time by BABB.
Well, Relaford again hitting the court. He has been tireless today on defense. That's how good the crowd is here. They even give the ball boy wiping up the mess a semi-ovation.
Now, this is a great community. They love the Cyclones through thick and thin. Kettle corn was pretty good, too, today, wasn't it?
I hit a little bit at that time. Royce White travels with it.
That time they tried to get him at the pinch post, and White just shuffled his feet. But
did they give it to you free up top?
No, $4. You owe me $4.
Okay, I got per diem. Don't worry.
Stretch it out, baby.
Well, neither team able to stretch out the lead in this game.
Iowa State goes man. They did this at Kansas. They switched to zone 1 possession. They do the same thing, and guess what?
They get a hoop from Robinson on the block. He's got 11 in the game. Strong side, weak side working out for the Jayhawks. Kansas looking for its 11th consecutive win. And its 14th in a row against the Cyclones.
Last time Cyclones won was in Allen Fieldhouse back in 2005. Curtis Stinson and Will Blaylock won.
It's a race from McGee with the rebound. And that's going to be a jump ball as Tyshawn Taylor hustled to tie up TYRUS McGee. How did they get it inside to Robinson that last play?
Watch how he seals you up the lane. There's no pressure on the passer. He just works. He's going to work Booker up the lane. Look at the seal. Booker's got to do his work early on the post. You know, when you're guarding a guy like Robinson and he's on the right block and the ball's on the left wing, guess where he's going? Left block. You got to do your work early.
Johnson.
That's a good battle inside. Booker. That's a foul on Booker.
Boy, there's sumo wrestling down there. And you know what? I'm going to put my money on Thomas Robinson every time. That's the 3rd foul.
Take a look.
Booker.
Yeah, watch this now. This is good battle right here. No foul. Booker's going to flail right there, and there's the foul. Gary Maxwell right on top of it.
They said that Thomas Robinson was one of the top players at the LeBron James skill camp this past summer.
I was there. I thought he was the best big man for sure. You talk about Mason Plumlee, Miles Plumlee, Anthony Davis.
Inside.
Sullinger, yep.
That time walked with it.
That time Robinson found himself underneath the backboard, and he had to work his way out and shuffled his feet in doing so.
Well, you think about the journey that Robinson has had in the last 12 months. All that he's endured personally, and then going from 6-man to perhaps player of the year in college basketball this year.
Certainly one of the candidates. 3 or 4 guys mentioned.
McGee with the pull-up. Booker with the rebound. Almost had an and one. Anthony Booker will go to the foul line. Try and break this tie. Well, Sunday night, ESPNU, your home for ACC basketball. This week, Georgia Tech visiting Harrison Barnes, a native of Ames, and number 8, North Carolina. ACC Sunday night basketball presented by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups on ESPNU, ESPN3, as well as streaming live on WatchESPN.com and the Watch ESPN app at 6 Eastern. It all starts at 5:30. Well, Withy is set to check back in for the Jayhawks as Booker, just a 50% foul shooter, missing the first one. Withy comes in for Wesley.
Bill Self, Mark, has always had a 9-man rotation through the years. When they've been a deep team, the starters play less minutes, but the rotation stays the same. With this lineup, guys like Robinson and Taylor are playing over 30 minutes, so the rotations in and out, substitution-wise, are the same, but the key guys are playing more minutes this year.
People almost forget, man, he had a very heralded recruiting class that had some issues with immediate eligibility.
That's exactly right. Yep. Ben McLemore sitting out. Top high school players in the country last year. Zoned by Iowa State, 2nd possession of the game.
Robinson at the elbow. 10 on the shot clock. Taylor with the drive-by. Man, is he quick. Tipped up by Robinson, kept alive, out of bounds. It'll be Kansas basketball. Friend, tell me about the thinking behind this switch to the zone defense.
Just, you know what? Just throw Kansas off just a little bit. You know, if you've been throwing fastballs all game, throw a changeup or a curveball in there a little bit. I don't think they'll stay in it long unless it becomes very effective.
Under 9.5 to go. Relaford.
Problem with Kansas, Mark, is there's a good example. Moving screen. That's 4.
And Whippy hit with his 2nd consecutive foul, which is an illegal screen. That's his 4th. So Kevin Young comes in for him.
I was going to mention, Bill Self's always got an answer for whatever defense you throw at him. They had the picket fence play set up right here, but watch Withy. He's going to move right there. As that right through that gate, you see him throw the right hip out. Dougie Gottlieb calls it the elevator play because of the way the doors open in an elevator.
Tough pass attempted by White, who turns it over. A chance now for the Jayhawks to retake the lead. Young, boy, they really lay off of him.
That's great defense. You know what they did to Young? They said, you can shoot this shot all night long. I'd make him shoot the next one.
He's missed several in a row now after making his first. So we talk about Tyson Taylor's ball handling and his leadership, but defensively putting in a lot of work today too. That ball kicked out of bounds, and it'll be Kansas basketball. So both teams struggling offensively on the last couple of possessions.
That was great defense by Kansas because Robinson would not let Royce White catch the ball near the lane. And they put pressure on Christopherson. Corey Lucius will be their point guard a year from now, the transfer from Michigan State. He's a guy that can get into the lane. Look at that.
Set piece, and Elijah Johnson off the line. One of those wrinkles you say that Bill Self has up his sleeve.
You know, he's the boy next door, and people think he's a great recruiter, but he's the son of a coach. He's got all the bag of tricks. Whatever defense you throw at them, he's got an answer.
That's the third foul, meanwhile, on Robinson.
Kansas gets this about once a game. Take a look. There's a little back screen. And see, the screener's man, Booker, is supposed to protect the lane. The screener is not a threat to score. The man going to the rim is the threat, so the screener's man must protect the rim.
Royce White back at the foul line for the Cyclones. As T-Hand comes back into the ball game for Kansas, Allen back in for the Cyclones. Royce White, meanwhile, 3 of 7 from the foul line today, which is right pretty much around his average. He's a 1-and-1. 18 fouls against Kansas already, and White puts nothing but net on the first.
Royce White walked right up to the rim. You see that?
Whatever works.
Well, he walked right up. He looked inside. He said, you know what? That rim is 18 inches in diameter. Just like back in Hickory. And the ball is 9 inches, so I can get 2 of these basketballs.
At what point did Gene Hackman come up and measure this? Get the tape measure out? He might not have to for the Cyclones here.
We'd have to get Keaton Page here to get on somebody's shoulders.
Here's White. Working against Relaford. Boy, Relaford guarding everyone from a 1 to a 4. BABB out top. On the shot clock. Booker squares up. Rebounded by McGee and then taken away by Relaford. Kansas basketball. Timeout. Tied at 53. This is what road play in the Big 12 is all about.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is presented by 5-Hour Energy. When you gotta get stuff done. And in part by the action thriller Man on a Ledge, now playing in theaters.
Locked at 53, 7.5 to go here in Ames, Iowa. Mark Jones along with Fran Fraschilla. You know, one of Fred Hoiberg's best games at Iowa State as a player against these Jayhawks in '95. He had 32 points in the game, 17 straight in the second half to help the Cyclones defeat number 3 Kansas at the time, 69-65, even corralling in the last second rebound in a huge win. And he has parlayed his popularity and his knowledge into a head coaching spot here, and his family, his wife Carol,
met her in the hallways of Ames High. You know, Jamie Pollard, when the job came open, when Greg McDermott was hired, Fred Hoiberg had just expressed some interest. When Greg McDermott took the job at Creighton, Jamie Pollard drove to Minnesota with a contract in his hand. They talked for 3 hours. Fred Hoiberg said, I'll take the job. I want to come home and be the head coach at the place where I had success, my hometown. And the experiment, I think, has gone well, Mark.
It certainly has.
They've got a very good recruiting class coming next year. A young man by the name of George Yang from Boston. He's a very good low post player.
Robinson.
Good D by Booker.
T-Hand with the floater. Robinson keeping it alive. Man, he's tenacious. Boy, bodies strewn all over the key. As McGee comes back the other way. Still tied at 53. 7 minutes to go.
Question right now with this lineup on the floor, who do you go to? I think if you're Fred Hoiberg, you got to run some sets here.
Chris Allen scores 12 a game, friend. He is having a subpar night, just 3 so far. EJIM on the baseline, stepped out of bounds.
Let me tell you something. Relaford did a great job defensively right there. Travis Relaford is, you know, you talk about unsung. He had 28 at Oklahoma. He does all the little things for you. You know what you love about Kansas right now? Elijah Johnson, Relaford, T-Hand was a walk-on. You got guys making major contributions that waited their turn.
There's Taylor on the drive and the kick. Relaford, that's off. Relaford doing a lot of the little things that count for Kansas, and playing with a bit of a foot injury. When he's not practicing, he sometimes walks around in one of those walking boots. Protect that foot of his. Still tied at 53.
Big possession because Christopherson and White are waiting to come in.
Tough shot. McGee hanging. Oh!
This guy was first-team junior college All-American, Mark. He's an outstanding shooter, but watching him on tape this year, he's very fearless. That time we talked about squaring those shoulders. A great shooter who can get those shoulders squared. He took the contact and still had the focus to get that ball around the rim.
Been a different player since that breakout game against Texas Tech when he had 20 points. And he gives Iowa State a 3-point advantage.
I told you this reminds me a lot of Wednesday because Kansas, like Missouri, has been in control for much of this game. Not necessarily on the scoreboard.
You talk about like pace, tempo.
Yeah, exactly. Throwing it inside.
There's Elijah Johnson. Freehand from the corner. He's had a tough time shooting it tonight. Usually a reliable shooter. At about 37% from downtown.
A game the other night, it went back and forth, and then LeBron Nash went nuts. It was a stretch of about 3 minutes, game over.
Looking at Royce White down here. Wrestling with Relaford. White kicks it out. He's got a little bit of a size advantage here, Fran. 10 on the shot clock. Nice look. EJIM walked with it. He walked with it.
Well, we said earlier, when you're playing with Royce White, you've got to stay alert for passes that are going to come to you. This time, EJIM on the cut, little unprepared. You know, that's a 1-2 step. That's close. That's close. But the point is, you play with this guy, you have to have your head on a swivel because you don't know when the ball is coming to you. Great passers throw passes to teammates who often don't realize they're open.
Robinson inside, lost the handle. A great opportunity, unable to be cashed in for Kansas. Under 5 minutes to go. White out top, working against Robinson. And a dribble handoff to BABB. White with the layup. Great feed by Christopherson. Timeout. They're waiting for the Hilton Magic. Kansas goes down by 5, and Royce White, the catalyst once again on this play plan.
McGee's basket was huge without White and Christopherson. Christopherson tees up White inside. Take a look at the little cut to the lane. And then that's power on power. Robinson does not want to pick up another foul.
Interesting young man, Royce White, who during his time off and transfer from Minnesota here, taught himself, Ren, to play the piano. A real Renaissance type of student athlete.
Now let's remember now, he had multiple legal issues at Minnesota, but he got a new lease on life. I talked to him yesterday, and you know what? Interesting kid. He's eclectic. Basketball's not the most important part of his life, but it's a pretty good vehicle.
5-point lead, 4.5 to go. Withy in the game with 4 fouls. Johnson with the pull-up. Cutter.
Boy, that clutch. Hey, Iowa State iced him. They pushed him down to the baseline, and the only thing he really had in the repertoire was the pull-up, and he did it nicely.
Nice bucket coming out of a timeout once again for Bill Self. BABB out top. Christopherson off the screen. 12 on the shot clock for Iowa State. Christopherson now White. 5. He's got to go with it. Reverse. Oh, what a shot. Robinson silences the crowd and brings Kansas back to within 3.
A year ago, Robinson would have never shot that ball. He shot that ball with the confidence of a Reggie Miller right there. That's the versatility of that young man's game.
Iowa State on the last couple of possessions, Fran, showed a lot of patience, running down deep into the shot clock and then almost seemingly getting into their play deliberately late. Here's White. You can almost hear the fans groan on that long jumper. Out of bounds. It'll stay Iowa State ball. With under 3 minutes to go. Cyclones with the lead. White. He's on a roll. You might want to call him a Rolls Royce right now, folks. Back with more right after this.
Iowa State.
Wow, guys, they're popping bottles. Towson State right now. Right here is a 3-point game. White working against Withy, who has 4 fouls.
They're trying to milk clock, but they also have to get a great shot. Kansas knows that.
CHRISTOPHERSON out front. BABB trying to come off the baseline screen. Now back to White. 9 on the shot clock, working against Withy. Nice move.
He took away Withy's length by burying that left shoulder just enough. Withy didn't know when to jump.
Tyshawn Taylor, wow, what a blur. He gets the quick get-back bucket, and it's back to a 3-point game, 2:16 to go.
I tell you, Mark, they've had great guards here through the years. You go right down the list. Bill Self's had a few of them. But Tyshawn Taylor is playing like an All-American right now.
Let's see how Royce White is getting it done right. Brought to you by TurboTax.
Well, we talked about how he stuffs that stat sheet, Mark. He leads his team in 5 different categories. But what Fred Hoiberg has done in the second half, he's really made sure that White has been in attack mode. Passing is the second option for him today. Going to the rim has been the first option, and you can see a typical Royce White night at the office.
One of the few players in the conference to register a triple-double this year. Had a triple-double earlier against Texas A&M.
And we were talking during the timeout earlier and trying to think of an NBA guy he reminds me of. You'd have to go back to like an Anthony Mason type. Physical bruiser who can handle the ball some, play good D. But right now, he's going to handle the ball for Fred Hoiberg.
Forward up court for the Cyclones. They lead it by 3, looking for perhaps the biggest win under Fred Hoiberg in his brief stint on the bench. Under 2 minutes to go. Johnson trying to stick CHRISTOPHERSON out top. 10 on the shot clock. Working against Robinson here. Tried to go back to the same move and drew the foul from Robinson.
And remember now, Bill Self switched assignments. That time Robinson with only 3 fouls picked him up, and now he's got 4.
And that's the 10th foul, so White will shoot 2. Well, Bill Self said if we lose today, it might not be considered a major upset when you look at how tough it is to win on the road in the Big 12. EJIM coming back into the ball game for the Cyclones. Booker will take a seat. Now he's right at his season average of 50%.
Remember what we talked about? The reason White had to attack in the second half wasn't so much getting to the line as getting Withy and Robinson in foul trouble. They both have 4 now.
Kansas in trouble right now. Number 5 team in the country trailing by 5 with about 1.5 to go. Johnson, the lob up top, a little too high for Withy.
Now you must make the clock your friend if you're Iowa State. Nothing but a layup, Mark. Sorry.
Too early to foul if you're Kansas?
If you could foul Royce White if you're Kansas, I would do it. The problem is Robinson can't be the guy that fouls. He's got 4.
CHRISTOPHERSON. Got it. Chris BABB. Timeout, Kansas. Chris BABB had a tough time struggling from downtown, Fran. He was 3 of 27 on his last few attempts from the right.
And remember this, his slump started with 0 for 6 at Allen Fieldhouse, but he shot that ball with confidence.
Now this is what they call Hilton magic, right?
You're getting a feel for it, my friend. What do we say? This is just like Wednesday in Stillwater. The game would be close, and that if Iowa State made a couple big plays, they could win this game.
Well, coming into this game, Kansas was undefeated in conference play at 7-0. Baylor with a win today. Iowa State looking to improve to 5-3 in conference play. And should they hang on for a win, that really puts them in good standing with the selection committee, you would think, moving forward. They got another big one coming up against Kansas State here at home next.
That's exactly right. They've made progress. They're the 5th best team in the league right now. I think they're a tournament team.
How many bids does this conference get you?
Right now, it's 5. It could be 6. A&M, Texas can still make some noise. Maybe Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. But Iowa State is good enough to be a tournament team, but you need to show the committee that you've got some positives on that resume. And it looks like they're going to zone, or at least show zone.
Kansas with a bunch of shooters on. Tried to find Tehan on that flare screen, Fran. Kicked out of bounds.
You know what? That's scouting report defense. Cornell Mann, the defensive assistant. That's a great scouting because they took away the flare screen by changing their defense to the zone. That's Kansas's bread and butter for Tehan when they need a 3.
Taylor with the blow-by and the layup. He cuts it to a 6-point game.
Kansas out of timeout, so they've got to give one.
They foul MELVIN EJIM, who's a 74% free throw shooter coming into the game. Hey, great basketball today, and coming up on Monday, 2 more for you on ESPN at 7. It's the Backyard Brawl Pitt against West Virginia, and then Marcus Denman in Missouri taking on Jacobin Brown in Texas. Big Monday presented by Bud Light on ESPN and ESPN3, streaming live on WatchESPN.com.
Let me tell you something now. Bill Self is going to elongate this last minute if he can. He'll try to trade some 3s for 2s, and if EJIM misses some 3s for 1s and 2s. It's going to come down to Iowa State making free throws.
EJIM makes both. So they win round 1 of the free throw wars. 8-point game. Relaford from downtown. He splashes it.
Boy, how good is he playing right now? See, they don't want to foul CHRISTOPHERSON.
He's the 91% free throw shooter. And they go right after McGee, who's not that far behind at 85%. A win-win for the Cyclones. 29.3 to go. 5-point ball game. Fred HOIBERG 29 seconds away from the biggest win in his brief coaching career here at Iowa State. What do they have to do to stay on the upside of this?
Well, the first thing is McGee's got to make both free throws, and he does shoot 85%. For Kansas, you're going to push it quick, and you probably have to shoot 3s now, like Relaford just did. Kansas would love for Royce White to have the ball, but I don't think Royce White's going to have the basketball in his hands unless he grabs a rebound. Iowa State is a reasonably good foul shooting team with 4 guys hovering around 90 to 75.
Well, you got White, who's done a great job today in so many different ways. 18 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. And Bill Self right now looking for an anecdote. Georgetown Pitt coming up next right here on ESPN.
And you see that they've got Royce White out, so they went with a small lineup.
That's going to be a foul against Elijah Johnson as McGee goes to the foul line. McGee, as I mentioned, shoots 85% from the line as White gets set to check back in. Boy, a win today for Iowa State, Fran, would mean so many different things. It would maybe sate some of those people that have had issues with the transfers that Fred HOIBERG has brought in. Yep. It's not like you get a bunch of transfers and it's magic. I mean, you've still got to coach them.
It's like, exactly. Now, the good thing about transfers, it's their second and last chance usually. So these guys have bought in. I love this McGee kid, man. I talked to him yesterday. He's money. He is money.
One of the best players in Iowa State history, Fred HOIBERG, watching his team now as the coach. And the clock winding down on a huge win for the Cyclones as they look to break the 10-game win streak of Kansas and the 13-game losing streak against Kansas.
Well, I don't know about you, partner. I'm going under the table, okay? So I'll see you later, okay?
We didn't work out that little security thing before the game, huh? CHRISTOPHERSON at the free throw line. Georgetown Pitt has just tipped off and getting underway. That's coming up next as Bill Self officially raising the white flag here.
But they're going to have to fight their way out. I don't think he's going to send him to the locker room early. But Bill Self told us, he talked to you before the game, this league right now with the venues you go to on the road, you talk about Oklahoma State on Wednesday night when Missouri came in. This is an upset, but not a big upset, Mark. Kansas has had a great first part of the season, but they're about to hit the teeth of their schedule.
Wow, saved the video on that one. CHRISTOPHERSON missed the free throw, but at this point, irrelevant. This one is cooked, glazed, and sliced. Iowa State improving to 15-6 overall and 5-3 in conference play. And Fred HOIBERG has a win over a No.5 team. You would think that the hope is in ensuing years that they wouldn't repeat this scene because wins like this against No.5 teams in the country would be just a matter of course and ordinary. But right now, this is an important brick in the rebuilding process for the Iowa State Cyclones. 16-6 in its first year, and right now, an important win in phase 2 for the head coach. Final score once again, Iowa State winning it 72-64 over No.5 Kansas. Coming up next, Big East basketball, number 10 Georgetown at Pittsburgh. The proceeding has been an exclusive presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. What an afternoon in Ames. Hilton Magic emerging again. For Fran Fraschilla, I'm Mark Jones saying so long from Ames, Iowa. Right now, we're going to send you out to Bob Wisician in Pittsburgh.
Big game for the Big 12. No.5 Kansas on the road, taking on Iowa State. Pick it up in the second half now. Kansas down 1. Tyshawn Taylor, great pass. Elijah Johnson for the dunk. Kansas takes the 1 point.
And they had complete control of the game at this point, but that's when the breakdown started.
Tough floater in the lane from TYRUS McGee. Iowa State takes a 3-point lead and then start to build on that lead, Andy.
Tremendous job by Iowa State getting the ball in the lane. And we talked earlier that the Iowa State guards certainly had to win this game.
And Royce White goes 6 for 11 from the free throw line. That was big. He also got to the chin of Jeff Withey, where he struggled against him last time, got them in foul trouble, and then Chris Babb.
Dagger. Yep. Chris Babb for 3. Iowa State wins at 72-64. Fans storm the court. Deservedly so. Elsewhere, Baylor, tough-fought victory, 76-70.